Hello there, my name is Kirk and I'm a cinematographer based in Melbourne, Australia, and today I'm taking you behind the scenes of how I shot a music video inside an oceanarium in an aquarium. Let's get into it. So this particular music video was for a band called Parolis, led by Liana and Fabian, alongside Louis and Rob. And this project was an absolutely incredible opportunity, not only because it was a massive challenge, but because we got to shoot it inside an aquarium. And this particular space was called an oceanarium, which is essentially a 360-degree tank of fishes and other water creatures, I guess you could call it. So for a quick overview of the project, we were shooting with two cameras, a Blackmagic 6K Pro, which was what I was on, which was on a lot of the locked off wide shots. And the second camera, or the second person on camera, was Bianca from Drop Frame, who was absolutely incredible. She was rocking a Blackmagic 6K, and that was actually being flown on an easy rig throughout the whole time. And the entire production was shot on the DZO Vespid prime lenses. So it was the 25, the 50, and the 70mm lens, all pretty much shot at wide open at 2.8, or it's 2.1, whatever the widest open aperture is for the for those lenses, as well as one shot was done on the Sigma 18-35. But before we get to all of that, because we were shooting in an aquarium after hours, specifically it was Melbourne Aquarium, we really had to plan a lot of the components of the shoots before we actually even set foot inside the aquarium on shoot day, from gear, production to logistics and everything, because we really only had an hour and a half of shooting time inside the oceanarium space just before the tank lights came off. So again, we had to plan a lot of stuff, from everything from the looks to the gear that was required and how we were going to get everything into the aquarium just after hours, because when we were in there, we didn't have that much time at all. In terms of lighting, this is a little lighting plan I prepared for this shoot, which was fairly simple. It was a aperture 1200D, which was hung almost from the ceiling from a massive C-stand, as well as two Nanlite Pavo tubes, which added a little bit of orange color to kind of contrast the blue light that was surrounding and everything. Now, speaking of lighting, this was one of the biggest problems when it came to this shoot. As you can tell, this is an entire 360-degree oceanarium space, which means it's 360 degrees worth of reflection. So no matter where we were putting lights, every single shot that we were taking, we could see the light in some areas. So we really did have to compromise on lighting placement in some elements of the entire shoot. So in some shots, I would have preferred to move the light in other areas, but because if we moved it just slightly an inch, we would have seen the light in the frame. So pretty much every single shot that you can see in this entire music video, the lighting is pretty much a centimeter just outside of the frame. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We didn't actually use or utilize any black negative fill or sheets to cover up these reflections, because once again, we only had 90 minutes or so to shoot within this space before all the lights turned off in the tanks and everything. So we didn't have much time, and we really needed to shoot as quickly as possible, but also light the space, because again, it's very, very dark with the tanks not actually providing that much light. A lot of planning was required prior to the shoot, so we mainly did two things. Firstly, I provided a bit of a director's treatment, which was my intention on how I wanted the entire project to feel, as well as the look of the project. So using some places like Shot Deck, as well as just Google Images, and I think it's called FrameSet as well, to storyboard different shots I wanted to showcase within the music video. So this was really, really important. This gave us both a really good idea of what the whole project was going to look like finally before we even shot anything on camera. So with lighting sorted and everything kind of in play when it came to the creative process behind or pre-production, it came to the shooting day. Again, it was pretty straightforward and fast paced. And once we got all the gear in, which was a whole element in itself, we had again 90 minutes or so to shoot everything. We mainly aimed to film everything a couple times, so the whole band played the music from start to finish a couple times to get those wide shots, while Bianca was coming in and out of the frame, getting each of the different band members in specific points. And then finally, we essentially got the band members to be placed in the oceanarium by themselves, while I took some of the band members to another spot in the aquarium, which was this massive tunnel of water and everything, where we could film them individually and again have something to cut into. Because with music videos, I think one of the most important things to do when it comes to actually getting shots when you are the DP is to make sure you get a lot of variety of things, because you want to make sure that people have their attention staying in that retention throughout the whole music video. Again, that's just my opinion for this project. It's not necessarily the right thing to do, but for this one because we wanted to keep it fast paced. Again, we wanted to make sure that we had a lot of variety, and those wide shots in the tunnel and as well as the individual musician shots in the main oceanarium space with no other band members around was a really important one to do. We pretty much wrapped up shooting and hit the record button, or stopped on the record button, 5 seconds before all the lights went out, and we really pushed to get those final shots, but we were quite happy with how everything turned out, and despite all the rushness, it was a really good shoot day, and the entire team was absolutely fantastic. But lastly, in terms of a cinematography perspective, which linked up to the post-production side of things, was that the final elements of this entire project, or essentially when the chorus mainly dropped or the final verse dropped in this music video, was that we wanted to create a nice expansive film, or expansive feel, I guess you could call it. So the whole film was pretty much guided and shot at 2:35:1, again a very standard cinematic aspect ratio. We wanted that to expand as soon as that final verse dropped to kind of showcase the entire aquarium. So I'll quickly put that right now. So now let's jump over to the computer and have a look at the post-production side of things for this music video. Okay, so now we are inside of a tunnel within the oceanarium, and I wanted to go through some of the color grading that was involved in post-production with this. This is the original shot. As you can tell, it's really kind of dark. It's hard to see Liana's face here on the harp, and we've got this little guy swimming up here. So it's an awesome shot, amazing leading lines and everything, really expansive, great location. So this is the before and this is the after, and as you can tell, there's a lot kind of going on here, and this is not very well organized, not too many parallel nodes, but again, I kept everything very sequential, and most importantly, I labeled everything. So quickly, this is the image straight out of the camera. Doesn't have too much character, so what I did firstly was just bring up the exposure and everything. It's a very underexposed image, as I wanted to get all the details in the highlights, so I brought that up a little bit, made some adjustments in the HDR wheels here, so everything is quite flat right now. Once I added in the contrast, again, we're getting a little bit more of a nice look compared to what it came out originally. I did some adjustments to the blue and the brightness in the blue section. So as you can kind of see here, some adjustments with the hue, saturation, as well as the luminance. The inner circle really needed to be brightened up. So this is exactly where her kind of face is. Again, this node here was lighting up her face. So this is before and after, just to add a little bit of brightness on her face. And this was tracked using the tracker and then the power node window, just to add a little bit of like illumination onto her face, but not too much. In terms of some of the other nodes, we made some adjustments to the floor just here. Now, this is where kind of the bigger effects come in that I use with this project. We used glow and rays within DaVinci Resolve. Again, free effects that are inside the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, which are amazing. I added a nice little white glow here just to add some little sparkly effects. And lastly, in terms of effects, we added this awesome green kind of ray, which essentially DaVinci Resolve tracks the bright elements of the screen and brings in a nice ray. And you can really like change how all of this is going. So you can kind of see some of the settings here. Alongside with this ray that was put in here as well, I added this power window, which wasn't tracked, but mainly just sectioned off to make sure the rays didn't really spill out on the other side of the image. You can kind of get the idea of what it took for me to get this image, which was very dark and kind of dark in these regions and brighter in these regions, to kind of swap it around and bring that whole picture up. And I think it looked pretty good in the end, compared and considering that we didn't have any lighting in this shot apart from a very small light behind, which honestly didn't really do too much. Now, this image is super gunky, as you can see. Very gunky, a lot of red and green kind of pixel distortion going on here. That's why we use noise reduction, and it cleans everything up, and paired with some of the sharpness stuff at the end, it does soften up the image in terms of noise reduction, but then the sharpness brings it back, and it makes such a huge difference. And I love noise reduction. Maybe it's because I'm shooting too underexposed, but in the end, I believe that you can fix things in post where it is necessary, but not to rely on. So this shot here was captured by Bianca, who was the second camera on the set, and she did an absolutely amazing job. Definitely a lot easier to grade these clips compared to my ones, because we had the lights in there. Again, we made some balancing adjustments just to get the right hues and everything. Then we just added some exposure using the HDR and main color wheels, and that kind of progressed right through. I added the noise feature in here, which is not usually the right place to put it. I typically put it right at the start, but I guess I added it there. Now, the biggest thing with this grade was the look. And as you can see, it's a very kind of yellow-orange contrast image. I don't quite like the way this looks. So what I mainly did to kind of change all of this was, again, desaturate some of those orange and blues. But most importantly was, again, use the DCTL tool to convert some of the blues to a bit more of a green cyan, which is, if you remember the lookbook and the director's treatment that I shared beforehand, was more of the look that we're going for. So if I activate this node just here, you can see what it does to the water. And I think it does an amazing job considering that I don't have to use the qualifier or anything. It just attacks those blues, and with the right push, but not too much, it does a really great job at changing the whole look of the image. So that's before and that's after. That about wraps things up for the post-production side of things. We'll jump back over to Kirk on that camera. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions at all, feel free to let me know if it's related to cinematography, my gear, or anything, or this music video in particular. I'll leave a link in the description below for the music video if you wanted to check it out. Until then, have a wonderful day, stay safe out there, and do take care.